Hey guys, it's Biggs. Boy, do we have something special for you today. I'm back in a place you guys might recognize it from a previous video, but we're going to go in much more detail today. I'm back with CORYMAN. Now, I know you got lots of people keep Corydoras catfish. They're loved the world over for being such amazing aquarium fish. And there's some real true experts in Germany, in the UK. There's some real world-renowned experts in the US. But today, I'm in the basement of a Canadian world-renowned Corydoras expert, and we're going to get into a bit more detail than we did in the last video. We're going to be talking about maybe how he goes about breeding the fish. We're going to talk about maybe some of the different strategies and some of the different lineages that break up the Corys. So stay tuned. All right, we're here with the master. He won't take credit for it, but that's the title we're dubbing him. It's my video, so that's what's going to happen. But we figured, in this video, we're going to go into a little bit more deeper. So I thought, let's talk to Dana specifically and let him run down how he goes about breeding Corys. Because this is your entire Cory setup.
It is.
In this small space. You mentioned about, what, 11 tanks?
There's 10 tanks in here.
Yeah.
And there's an 11th one over there that's a grow out for babies and keeping some adults.
Yeah, and you have Corys that kind of grow out in all your other little tanks too, I've noticed too, like the ones behind me and stuff.
Yeah.
So what's your process? Lead me through how you go about doing this whole thing.
To find the adults, I obviously research the fish, and here in Canada, especially here in Saskatchewan, it's tough to get some stuff like fish, right?
We don't have Aquabid, and we can't go to shows.
It's not as easy as it would be in some places. Bigger Canadian cities are down in the States. So I seek to buy any spawnable Corys I can. So right now I probably have in here, I'm going to say about 30 different species.
Wow.
either spawning or waiting to spawn.
Well, I guess you're always kind of planning you always want to keep that momentum going, so you're always buying groups to grow out for that next challenge, right?
Yeah, I don't specifically look for any one type. I kind of stay away from lineage 8 Corys because they're a little beyond my skill set, but I mean, generally, to me, if it's spawnable Cory, and I can find that out, Ian Fuller's website, Corydoras World, speak to guys like Rob McClure, and then, of course, on the web.
Yep.
There's a ton of information about the water parameters, whatever you need to know is in there.
Now, the lineage system that you talked about, I'd never heard about that. I've kind of been removed from keeping this sort of stuff for a while, and I'd never even heard about that. You just mentioned that kind of in passing, and I was like, I didn't even know what that was. And then you explained it. Can you tell me a little bit about what the lineage system is or what the purpose of it is?
Corys have been, like a lot of catfish, have been broken down into a further, I guess, I'm not a scientist, it's a further identification system. So they've broken down the different types of Corys into groups and they call them lineages. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there's a much more better explanation for that. But you can identify groups of Corys by their lineage, and when you look for a Cory, it'll always be described as a certain type of lineage.
So they're kind of grouped in like the ones. So like your green Corys and all those other ones will be all together, and then the ones that have the masks will all be kind of together.
Just to give you an example, the long sloping nose ones are all lineage 1.
Okay.
The Aeneas types that look like Aeneas, what do you call it? The names are going to escape me here.
That's fine.
They're lineage 7.
Okay.
All the Mateys.
So it's not an order of difficulty or anything like that, because you mentioned lineage 8 is the one that nobody wants to deal with because they're more challenging?
They're way more challenging. They're absolutely gorgeous fish, don't get me wrong. Yeah. I mean, the Ornatus is in there, they're beautiful Corys, but they're beyond my skill set.
So there's just something in that lineage that's one little piece of the puzzle that we haven't really cracked en masse to breed them. To breed Corys, especially wild-caught ones, they are all going to require a form of trigger. Maybe some easier species might only require 1, and some might require 2 or 3, and the triggers could be water changes or introduction to live food or changing water chemistry, be it pH or hardness or the acidity level, adding black water tonics and stuff.
It's a 3-part process. You've got to trigger the fish first of all, get them to spawn, and I mean the fish know what to do. To quote Mr. Fuller, they know what they're doing. You just have to recreate the right conditions, and that's for a lot of them. That's the trick, is to figure that out. Mm-hmm. Study the water where they came from, learn the water, the parameters, the temperature. Is there a dry season? types of things like that.
Yeah.
So 10-gallon setup, your basic Corydoras setup, a little bit of very fine, not sharp sand,
Yeah.
a couple of spawning mops in the tank, some kind of vegetation, doesn't really matter what it seems. Java moss, Java fern, anubias, all really good. Anything that can handle, low light conditions.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got it pretty bright in here for filming, but normally it would be.
Yeah. It's usually very dim in here.
I'll give you a quick sample.
So anything above Java moss, anubias, those sort of things isn't going to survive.
No, and
Would plastic work the same way for people that are just for breeding?
I assume so, but I'm not a fan. So
Yeah.
that's not going to be me. Anyway, a couple mops. There's a mat and filter in the back. We firmly believe in these things, and there'd be a jet lifter on top.
Yep.
And you want current. Cories are a river fish.
Yeah.
They like current.
Okay.
So every one of these tanks will have water, depending on the size of the
Well, you can
fish.
see the flow going
Yeah.
on the tanks.
And I
There's a
mean-
lot of flow happening in these tanks.
Yeah.
It's very revenant.
If you've got enough, it should wipe the sand away by the end of the day.
Oh, even right at the front. Yeah, that's right.
that's-
So that's not the fish doing that.
No, that's the water in.
It's rolling through the
Yeah,
tank and going back.
These aren't turned full on right now. When they're full on, you'll see the fish right at the front all the time.
Yeah, there you can see the tank how much is running, and that basically the mat and filter takes the entire back wall of the aquarium
And
and
makes
turns
it
it
a
into
filter.
a fully mechanical and biological filter.
So I mean, these are good. I don't have to tear these down for 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll do water changes in them constantly.
Now you do your research on each individual species, and then all the different species that you work with here. Do you have lots of different types of water parameters you have to work with, or do you kind of treat them all fairly equal?
I mean, there's some soft water fish in here,
Yeah.
Dossier, Loximus, fish like that I'm gonna turn down the hardness and
Okay.
cut some RO, like typically an 80-20 mixture.
Yeah.
But the majority of them, unless the fish seems to call for it, and that's just reading and talking to people.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll be Saskatoon tap water's not too
Yeah, you
bad.
guys have got real good water here. You always have. You've always done well with planted aquariums here.
It
And
is. It's not as soft as it could be for Cories or as low pH as it could be, but they seem to like it just fine.
yeah.
10-gallon tank here. It's got Corydoras axelrodi in it, and you can actually see some eggs here, which will.
So apparently they're not They didn't read the pamphlet. They're supposed to put the eggs in the mop.
If you look in those mops, there will be eggs in there. I guarantee you. Yeah.
So they'd spawn on the shallows. They go into the shallows and use the roots of the plants and stuff, and they'd lay eggs all over the place. They're an egg scatterer.
They are. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny. Different species typically have their places where they like to put them. If you're serious at all about breeding Corydoras catfish, you need to get this book from Ian Fuller, CorydorsWorld.com. I'm not saying that as a plug, even though it totally sounds like that, but this is a wealth of information.
That's the Bible for breeding curries.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. So what do we got in the first one?
F1 Longipinus, collected by my friends.
These are the ones collected directly from Uruguay,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
by my friends. There's also a group of CW49s in there.
Sounds very fancy.
Corydoras Acuus, or maybe not saying that right.
Well, there's two different fish in this tank.
Nope.
Well,
Oh, sorry. There's also a single. I think it's a 121, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
Corydoras axelrodi.
And these are the ones that had the eggs right on the tank here that we were talking
Yes.
about. Yeah.
Yes. These are Corydoras fulleri.
Yeah. So this is named after Ian Fuller.
Yes.
Okay, not Fowleri like we.
Not
that I've seen.
Fowleri. They're coming.
Yeah.
Not Fowleri. Evanley. Naki. Corydoras Naki. Corydoras lauretensis in there, as well as Corydoras atropersonatus.
And this is in one 10-gallon tank. You got four
just-
species.
It's just growing out.
Yeah.
These are fry of Septernalis, Corydoras septernalis.
Okay.
I'm saying that wrong, but I don't care. These are baby fulleri and baby Corydoras fowleri,
Yeah.
Corydoras C113s, as well as Corydoras simulatus. And there is also 5 Corydoras cruziensis in there. There's probably 20 sturbae in there as well in the
Okay.
top tank. Down here we have
Very obvious sturbae in that one.
sturbae in there. We have there's some female fulleri in there. There is bifasciatus.
That's the big one. Yeah.
That's the
yeah.
big one.
What's the one with the skunk-like stripe?
That is there is I don't know yet because
Okay.
they were misidentified when I got them. So
Okay.
I'm not going to say because.
But that's also part of the thing. Like when
They're-
you're
they're
buying
not-
wild caught cories,
Yeah.
you know they're not always right.
They're not Grand Thai.
Okay.
The Arcuatus, what they call Arcuatus now. And there is also in there Rabaudi.
Roboto is the one that has those real sexy babies, right? Like the babies.
They are stunning.
Yeah, they're the ones that have the real vivid
Kevin
color.
Acton spawned them, and the fry were everything you see in the pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were stunning looking.
Well, there you have it, guys. From the man himself. Going to just call him CORYMAN. He's Canadian CORYMAN from now on. My good friend Dane Allan. Thanks, buddy. See you next time, guys. Take care.